All right, good evening, afternoon, morning, everyone, on this wonderful Super Bowl Sunday. I'm your host, Kurt, for TGT Media. This is the Entertainment Industry Interview Podcast, where we interview the creative minds from various entertainment industries, because today is the beginning of Author Month. Yeah, authors are those that write books and stuff, you know, the books that open up and with the iPad thingamajigs, and it's very, very complicated these days. But we're joined today by a longtime guest on the show. We are joined by Scott King, creator of his brand new book, Finish the Script, which is a collegiate take on a script writing course. And how you doing today, Scott?
I'm good, Kurt. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for asking. You know, in the craziness that is this Sunday, you know, it's good that we're taking the time to really look at a subject that is dear to my heart right now, because I'm going to university for film creation. So why did you want to create this book?
I've always wanted to do a screenwriting book. I was never sure when would be a good time to do it. But last year I did a Kickstarter for my comic Holiday Wars, and some of the higher tiers I had, you know, you could take an online screenwriting class with me.
Right.
And if I hadn't done that, I don't think Holiday Wars would have ever made its Kickstarter goals. So afterwards, I was like, you know what? After working with the people for a few months, I was like, I should really just sit down and write the book I've always wanted to write. And I did that last fall. I've been working with the editor, and here we are now trying to make the money to pay the editor.
Well, you know, I look at the Kickstarter goal here, and I find that it's very reasonable.
Yeah.
For books that are normally, you know, you're looking sometimes at $4 or $5, $6 to publish a huge stack of books. You have something that's a very reasonable goal, and you're very creative with your levels as well in Kickstarter.
Oh, thank you.
But about this book itself, because this is something that I'm rather interested in. Creating a script, I don't think many people understand they think it's very simple to create a book. However, there are very different nuances with not only the pitch, the character creation. You know, talk us through a quick, you know, summary as to you creating a script for those that think, well, hey, anyone can create a script.
Right. Let's just back up 1 second and be very clear that the Kickstarter for the book, and the book's titled Finish the Script, and it's basically my college screenwriting course just squashed down in book form. So it's, you know, it takes a novice writer from the conception of an idea all the way through rewrites. In terms of writing a screenplay, I like to tell my students that writing a screenplay is actually a lot harder than writing a novel. You can maybe not be that experienced of a writer and sit down, and as long as you take the time and you stick with it, you can probably finish a novel. Screenplays, although shorter and there's a lot more white space in them, there's certain rules and structures and norms that you kind of have to adhere to, and that's what makes writing a screenplay so complicated.
Oh, it's also the fact that you have to think of your characters, and a lot of people just kind of say, well, I want this to be a female character, this age, and they want to become the hero of the world. And it's just, they don't really go into character creation or into the depth of one.
Yeah, but you could say that about any kind of writing. You could have the same situation writing a comic or a novel, and that's just bad writing. And the way I try to deal with that in the book is there's going to be 4 parts. The first part is the kind of like the pre-production. It's the planning, coming up with the idea, doing your structure and all that. And then there's a huge part where it's just about the writing process. And that's partially because a lot of my students are sequential arts majors or just art students, as opposed to writing or creative writing. So, you know, we talk about prose, writing dialogue, and all that kind of stuff. And then the book gets into writing your first draft, and then it's going to go into doing your rewrites.
Well, then the fact that you have to, once you get everything created, once you're through your rewrites, once you've had someone look it over, an editor or rather a producer, director, depending on if you're going to submit this to the big studios there. What about the pitch itself? Seems to be something that can really get people stumbling, especially if they're trying to say pitch to someone of importance.
Right. The pitch. I like to say there's 2 kind of pitches. There's the pitch that I normally teach in one of my first classes, and then I call that the elevator pitch. And that's the basic, you know, you get on an elevator, there's an executive next to you, and you have one floor to pitch your idea to them. And I think the elevator pitch is a really good writing tool. And what I do is I have my students come up with the elevator pitch at the very start before they've even written anything. after the fact, when they've gone through rewrites and the first draft and all that mess, if they're actually pitching it to sell it, I don't necessarily think that original elevator pitch is the best way. And I do have a whole other section where it's like, all right, if we're going to sell the script, you need to elaborate in these kind of methods.
And those methods would be...
You got to read the book.
All right.
I'll spoil stuff early on. I'm not going to spoil the end of the book.
Well, it's not like a novel. I mean, but it's
it's basic pitch protocol. You know, you got to read who your audience is, know how to talk to them. Normally, shorter the words are the better. You want to leave them wanting more. I mean, it's all that kind of basic stuff. It's the same kind of stuff you would do if you're trying to pitch your comic to a publisher or pitch your novel to an agent. You know, it's basic pitch protocol.
Okay, all right. Well, then, with the success of Holiday Wars and the Kickstarter campaign, which was well done, you know, what information are you taking from that Kickstarter campaign and transferring to this Kickstarter?
What am I doing basically different is what you're asking. Yes. What am I doing different? The big thing that I really did different is that we're marketing this as an ebook. So there's no printing, there's no shipping, and that's one of the biggest downfalls of Kickstarter is that you may make X amount of money, but then you're going to lose a third or half of that for the shipping cost. And so that's the big thing is that we're focusing all on digital distribution. So that way, you know, there's no lateness, there's no losing it in the mail, there's no $40 fees for shipping it to the Netherlands. Like that was just a mess.
Yeah. Definitely. Now, how long have you been teaching script writing?
This will be my 4th year.
4th year, good. So then, has that always been an interest for you because of Holiday Wars?
Well, I went to school for film and video for undergrad, and then I went to grad school for the same thing. And if you're going to grad school for film, the only reason to go to grad school to film is to teach. So I've always wanted to teach. And then I just got lucky enough that the first school to hire me was like, oh, you want to teach? Go ahead, teach writing. You know, we're okay with that. I really lucked out in that method because I could have ended up somewhere where, oh no, we don't have any screenwriting courses, or oh no, we already had the professors doing those. You need to teach just these intros.
Yeah, and that would probably drive you insane after a while too.
Yeah.
Well, then, have you ever sold any of the scripts you've created?
I've worked on a whole bunch of movies and a whole bunch of TV shows, and when I was in high school and college, and I really quickly learned I don't like production or really Hollywood, and that's kind of how I got into comics. I still wanted to write and tell stories, but I didn't want to do it with the business side. So all the scripts that I've written were never actually meant for Hollywood. They're always meant to be published as a graphic novel, and if they sell after the fact, that's fine. I just don't want to. That's not my problem. That's the business side of things, you know.
Well, with the advent of the web series, with YouTube, with those specific YouTube channels that I've seen going on here, you know, could you see your students or anyone that picks up this ebook, could you see them foregoing the big studios to say, you know what, forget them, I just want to create my own content with the script I've created with this ebook?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm teaching is writing, and yes, it's in the form of screenwriting, but it could apply to a novel. You could take finish the script and use it to structure your novel. You could take it and use it to write a graphic novel, or you could take it and do a web series or an online, you know, movie that you can download or so forth.
Well, what about some of your students though that have gained wisdom and knowledge and experience through your teachings? Have you seen any of those diamonds in the rough?
Because I have so many sequential majors, a lot of my students have taken their screenplays and then are now currently trying to adapt them into comics. Really? So that's kind of cool seeing, you know, coming in like a semester later, oh, Professor King, you got to check this out. Look how I did this, and I changed this during the summer. And so it's really nice to see them grow as both artists and creators and see them so excited about, you know, writing.
Nice. So then at the end of the day, after you're done packing up the laptop and heading home, though, specifically, you know, do you work on anything besides Holiday Wars? Are you writing your own scripts?
Yeah, we have, this is still Holiday Wars related. We have 2 Holiday Wars spin-offs in the works. Outside of that, I have another graphic novel that's currently being drawn by an artist, and then I have another one we're trying to find artists for. So I have other projects. It's just because comics take 2 to 3 years to produce, you know, 200 pages, They're slowly leaking out. And you got to realize, I mean, Holiday Wars is finally in print now, and its official release is this April. I wrote that 5 years ago. So I've written a lot of stuff between then and now. It's just going to be time before it sees the light of day.
And obviously you're still excited doing this. You still want to showcase your comics as well as your scripts, for that matter, to the world here. And I'm glad that you're taking that initiative. When it comes to this type of ebook, though, could you say, or would you say rather, that anyone that has ever attempted to write a story, write a novel, could you say that they could simply pick this ebook up and start and get something published by the end of reading it?
Well, you're asking a big question, and the big question there is, or the big hint of that is getting published. Normally, the first screenplay you write is going to be crap, and that's not because the person's crap. It's because there's a big learning process. My first 5 screenplays are never going to see the light of day, but you know what? I learned a lot from them. And the 6th thing I wrote was Holiday Wars. And look, it's a published graphic novel now. It was a staff pick by Diamond in the month of February. So it just takes time. And yeah, maybe that first script isn't going to get published or it's not going to get sold, but that's okay because you're starting your journey as a writer. And the only way you're ever going to start that is by sitting down and actually finishing the script.
Then what personal challenges do you think writers have when it comes to creating scripts?
Procrastination, not actually sitting down and doing it. And if you yourself are actually now getting into writing, I'm sure you can attest to that. Yeah.
Not really,
no?
Actually, because I love writing, though. I've always loved writing. It's what I used to do.
What's the longest thing you've written?
Longest thing I've written? Story-wise, prose mainly was like 4 or 5 pages.
That's the C. We're talking about 120 pages.
Okay, all right.
Sitting down and forcing yourself to write that, it's not an easy thing. You have to have the willpower.
But the major thing that a lot of the professors and the GAs, TAs keep saying is, show don't tell. I think it's the language of writing a script that we're not used to. We're not used to using the direct actions of directing a character. We're used to telling whatever happens. I mean, do you see that a lot when starting this out?
Yeah, especially because I work with a lot of people who are artists as opposed to English or creative writing majors. And show don't tell is one of our big things when I get to how to write prose or tips for writing prose. And for those who are watching or listening who aren't sure, the example is saying, if in my script I said, Kurt is sad. If I had that in the script, that's very poorly written because I'm telling the audience and I'm telling the reader what's happening. What I need to do is show the audience. I need to write, Kurt has tears dripping from his eyes. That implies he's crying, thus he is sad. And it's nice coming from comics because both comics and movies are both visual mediums. So in both places, you definitely need to show and not tell. So it's just nice how those two come together.
I think the major thing was when I first wrote my initial script, it was called Ahoy, about a drunken sailor who was finding his last bottle of alcohol on a lone ship and crashes into a tree because his boat is landlocked. Basically, that was my first initial script, and I shot it and whatever, and it was a quick, funny one-page thing. But initially putting that together was very difficult because how do you create a half-silent film, half a voice film with just action? And that was the main thing where I'd really step back and say, be that character, be that actor, and say, well, how do I portray a person that's searching for a bottle of alcohol? How do I portray the surprise of running into a tree? How do I, that type of, it's like a how, what, why, when, and
well, do you want to break it down? How much time we got here? I'll do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, sure. Let's do
All right.
it.
So what's your protagonist's name?
Protagonist's name is just simply the captain.
The captain. Okay. What does the captain want?
The captain wants a bottle of alcohol because he's drunk.
Okay. He's an alcoholic. He's a drunk. What's getting in his way?
Well, finding the said alcohol bottle because he doesn't know where it is.
Okay. And just where is it in general, just so we know?
Oh, it's in the hold. It's below the lower deck.
Okay. Now, why can't he find it? He just doesn't have an idea of where it is?
He's half in his bag, and he's searching around the boat initially for said bottle.
And is he? You said he was landlocked already, or is he on the water? Or
He thinks he's on the water, but his boat is actually landlocked. It's literally on land.
okay, is that kind of like the twist ending? As we reveal at the end that he's actually nowhere? Okay, so. All right, so looking at this right now, you have your protagonist, the captain. He wants the alcohol. The conflict is he can't find the alcohol, and I'm guessing you're visually setting it up throughout the whole thing. Is he's searching and looking around for it? My first question is: does the audience know where the alcohol is ahead of time? Are we kind of in on the joke, or do they not know also?
They don't know at all, actually, until he finds said bottle of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Sees the tree in his way, and then he jumps off the boat into the ice cooler that's full of alcohol.
Okay. No, as is, I think it works fine. And sure, you probably don't have a lot of dialogue, and you probably don't want a lot of dialogue. Maybe grumbling or mumbling. But for the type of story you wrote, if you have a lot of action, I don't really see a problem with it, especially because it's just a short. It's probably like 2 to 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, if you're scripting that out, and you can tell me if I'm close or not, you probably had it so it was like one sentence and 2 sentences, then a paragraph break, and then 2 more sentences and so forth. And the idea with that being is that each one of those clumps of action lines, those are probably like a shot, So every time, he's reaching for the bottle and you describe the bottle or whatever, that would be the equivalent of, one set and one shot. The next one is, think of your next camera angle or where you're going to have the camera. That would be your next description line. So if you're working with a lot of action and description, which sometimes you can't avoid depending on the kind of script you're working on, just think of it as camera angles. Each of these paragraphs are like a little bit of storyboard. And that would have been a way to go about it.
Cool. No, that was pretty close, actually. Overall, yes, it was every sentence was a various camera angle. Setting up the physical shoot itself turned out to be, because of what we have a boat down by the water, which is literally landlocked. So shooting from a camera perspective, I had to shoot close. I had to shoot from the side and not show any of the grass or any of that around it.
Right.
So visually, conceptually, from a script standpoint, yes, that was spot on. Love it. From actually filming it was a real pain in the ass.
Well, that's directing and production, and that's not my realm. I mean, I worked on movies. Some of them were big disasters and unions and problems. So I'm staying away from all that kind of stuff. I'm just focusing on the writing.
Fair enough. We'll get into the actual later on this year. We're going to actually talk to actual film directors, producers about their various films that they've done, dealing in TIFF and the Real Asian Film Festival later on this year. But when it comes to this book, now that you have finished the script, in the can, in an ebook format, I'm looking forward to seeing your Kickstarter be very successful, as I know it is. Are you going to write a follow-up to this, or are you going to write another subject for an ebook?
I don't know. I think it'll partially depend on the reception, and it's a long book. My page count right now, I think, it's at 4,300 and some words. And so, I mean, we aren't talking about just a little book. We're talking about a nice, decent size. Mm-hmm. And if after the fact I realize, there was stuff I probably should have had in there, or I'm getting a lot of questions, maybe I should go back and recover this aspect of it, I might do it. But right now, I'm trying to put everything in there. I'm not trying to hold anything back.
Nice. Do you find that with this book, do you think that the person reading this will be overwhelmed with information?
No, and that's partially because of the way the book's structured. I'm a teacher. I work with students every day in the classroom. And so each of the chapters they're almost word for word my lecture and examples that I use in class. In addition to that, they're the assignments I use. So as long as you're following along and, you read this lecture and do that assignment, it shouldn't be too overwhelming.
Do you think that your university or college, wherever you're a professor at, do you think that the university or college will use this as, say, a textbook?
That's up to the teacher's discretion. And since I'm teaching the class, I can tell you the teacher's going to use it.
But I mean, for a official textbook of your school, I think would be rather
again. When you're teaching at college, it's all up to the professor's discretion on if they use a textbook and what textbook they use. So in that case, as long as I'm teaching the class, that'll be up to me to decide. If someone comes on, years from now, it's up to them what they decide to use.
Okay. Well, I was just curious because you figure, oh, well, the students want to get a better mark. They grab the book. They say, hey, could I have you sign my ebook? Go.
Right.
Get that extra credit.
Well, I have my cartooning students. I'm forcing them to buy a copy of Holiday Wars, so.
It's required reading.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. You've been on the show multiple times here. You've had great success with Holiday Wars. You've always had a very good proponent of pushing comics and digital medium. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners, with the viewers, I should say now, that would be interesting?
I do just want to say that head over to Kickstarter and check out Finish the Script. And on the page, I have a sample chapter that I think is like 15 or 16 pages long. So definitely go there and check it out. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Holiday Wars is coming out, and it's great to talk to you guys. If you have any questions, hit me up.
Oh, totally, for sure. And I'll throw my latest script at you called Alone, but that's all I'll say online. That ends this episode of TGT Media. Thank you so much, Scott King, for coming on the show. It's been a true pleasure. And I hope to have you on next year or later on this year, whatever works for you. But, you can always see Scott King's work, of course, at Holiday Wars. You can see the Kickstarter campaign, Finish the Script, check it out, purchase it. Easy goal to attain, and I know with this knowledge that Scott's imparted on us, it's going to be rather entertaining, informative, and, of course, educational.